This is ANN News Brief.
Human rights analysts and child welfare and women's advocates in Tanzania are applauding the decision by Tanzania's highest court to uphold a 2016 landmark ruling that raised the minimum age of marriage to 18. They say millions of youth, especially those in traditional, rural or disadvantaged communities where girls are vulnerable to early marriage, would benefit from the ruling. After a legal challenge, 2 sections of the marriage law were struck down by the High Court, raising the minimum marriageable age from 14 to 18. But the country's Attorney General appealed the ruling last year, urging that the lower minimum age would protect girls who got pregnant out of wedlock. The Tanzanian advocacy group Michana Initiative led the effort to raise the minimum age to 18. One of its lawyers said permitting marriage at an earlier age contravened the country's constitution and disrespected international conventions ratified by Tanzania's parliament. Russian President Vladimir Putin has told African leaders attending the Russia-Africa Economic Forum in Sochi that Russia exports more food to Africa than weapons. He said the country exported $25 billion worth of food as opposed to $15 billion in weapon sales. Putin said Russia and Africa need to develop close business ties to serve the common interests of both Russia and Africa. He says such cooperation will contribute to the sustainable growth of all the countries involved and would help to improve quality of life and solve numerous social problems. The Russian leader said economic issues are a major part and a priority of Russia's relations with African countries. The Russia-Africa Economic Forum was timed to coincide with the first ever summit of Russia and African states, which ended on Thursday. Stay with us to return after this break.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Africa Center for Strategic Studies, ACSI, says militant Islamic group activities in Africa has doubled since 2012 and that those groups are increasingly targeting civilians. The center released earlier this year an analysis of violent trends in Africa over the past decade, that showed violence targeting civilians was at its highest level last year since 2012 as a proportion to all reported events last year. ACSS used information from the Armed Conflicts Location and Event Data Project AC-led. ACSS says violence against civilians in sub-Saharan Africa was at its highest level since 2010 as a share of all conflict-related fatalities. But it cautions that although this is troubling news, violence from militant Islamist groups forms a relatively small share of total violence on the continent. ACSS is a think tank funded by the United States Department of Defense. That is ANN News Brief. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, nnafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at NN Africa TV. I'm Lucy Adeyemi.